Good afternoon, students. Today we're going to talk about a new lesson of social studies entitled Geography of Europe. We talked before, guys, about empires of Asia and the Americas. Today we're going to talk about a new unit, renewal in Europe, and we're going to start with this lesson, Geography of Europe. But before explaining this lesson, guys, I'd like you guys to look at the main ideas. The physical features of Europe vary widely from region to region. What I mean by features? Features means a part of a building or of an area of land. What I mean by a part of a building or of an area of land? For example, if I'm talking about the desert. If I ask you about the features of a desert, you're going to say to me, very hot, very dry, barren, has no plants. So these are some features of a desert. You understand? This is what the physical features. Geography has shaped life in Europe, including where and how people live. What I mean by this idea? Geography has shaped life in Europe. For example, people like living around what? Around rivers. People don't like living in mountains or in hills. Okay, guys? So this is what does he want to say by geography has shaped life in Europe, including where and how people live. The big idea today, because Europe has many types of landforms and climates, different ways of life have developed there. Let's start. If you were there, your village is on the banks of a river. The river has created a flat plain where you can grow crops. The river also gives you a way to get to the sea and to trade with villages farther inland. You love your village and think it's the perfect place to live. But your favorite uncle, the one everyone looks up to, says he's very worried. Your village is then a very dangerous place. Why do you think your uncle is worried? Let's see. Building background. Many villages in Europe were built on rivers. Why on rivers? Definitely, guys, because they are going to get benefited by the water from the river. For what? For their use and for what? For farming. But rivers were only one of the physical features that affected where and how people lived in Europe. All of Europe's features, its landforms, its waterways, and its climates played roles in shaping people's what? People's lives. Now, let's talk about the physical features of Europe. And we talked about features. Okay? For example, if I'm talking about a person, what are the features of that person? You're going to say to me, he's intelligent, he's having, as we can say, long hair. These are some features of a person. Europe is a small continent, but it is very diverse or diverse. What I mean by diverse or diverse? It has what? It has so many lives. Not adhering to one life, guys. Many different landforms, water features, and the climates can be found there. Although we call Europe a continent, it is actually part of Eurasia. Why a part of Eurasia? There is a landmass connecting Europe and Asia, so we call this landmass, we call it Eurasia. The large landmass that includes both Europe and Asia. Geographers consider the Ural Mountains to be the boundary between what? The two continents. What is the boundary between the two continents? Europe and Asia. You're going to say to me the Ural what? The Ural Mountains. The Ural what? The Ural Mountains. I think it's clear. I think it's what? I think it's clear. Okay, guys? Let me complete. Landforms and waterways. If I asked you before explaining landforms and waterways, guys, what separates Europe from Asia? You're gonna say to me the Ural what? The Ural Mountains. Look at the map of Europe, and we're gonna look at it now. You can see the different what? The different parts of Europe have very different features. In other words, Europe's topography varies widely from one place to another. What I mean by topography, guys? It refers to the shape and elevation of land in a region. Topography means the physical appearance of the natural features of an area. The physical appearance of the natural features of an area of land, especially the shape of what? Of its surface. For example, you will find land has what? Has mountains. Another land is flat. This is called the topography of this what? Topography of this land. Mountain ranges cover much of southern Europe. Okay? Some peaks in the Alps reach higher than 15,000 feet. 15,000 feet. The highest mountains have large snowfields and glaciers. So, mountain ranges cover much of southern Europe. Some peaks in the Alps reach higher than 15,000 feet. The highest mountains have large snowfields and what? And the glaciers. The highest mountain we have what? Glaciers or glaciers. River of what? River of ice. Do you understand? I think it's clear. Ice what? Ice rivers. Ice rivers. Let me complete. So, the land mass between Asia and Europe, we call it Eurasia. Let's complete, guys. Look at the map. Here we have Ural Mountains that separates what? Asia from Europe, and we call this area, this landmass, we call it Eurasia. Now let's complete, guys. North of the Alps, here we have the Alps. North of the Alps mountains, the land is much what? Is much flat. Here, the land is much what? Is much flatter than in southern Europe. In southern Europe, the land is mountainous. Is what? Mountains. In fact, most of northern Europe is part of the vast northern European plain. If you look here, most of northern Europe is part of the northern European what? European plain. Okay, let me complete. It stretches all the way from the Atlantic Ocean. From the Atlantic Ocean here in the west to what, guys? To the Ural Mountains in what, guys? The Ural Mountains in what? In the east. Okay, let's complete. In the west, the Atlantic Ocean in the west to the Ural Mountains in the east. In the past, this huge expanse of land was covered with thick forests. In the past, this huge land was covered with what? With forests, thick forests. Many types of trees grow well in what? In the plain-rich, fertile what? Or fertile soils. Let's go, guys, to the northern European plain. The northern European plain. This is the northern European plain. Is also the location of most of Europe's major rivers. Why it is the location of most Europe's major rivers, guys? Here in that part we have what? We have snow. When the snow melts, what is happening? It is going to what? It is going to run down from higher places to lower places, forming what? Forming rivers. Forming rivers. So if I ask it you, where most of Europe's major rivers located, you're gonna say to me in the northern European what? European plain. So let me complete. Wait. Many of these rivers begin with melting snow in the southern mountains and they flow out across the plain on their way northwest to the sea. If you travel even farther north from the northern European plain, the land starts to rise. So look here. We said that the land in the south is what? Is mountainous. And we said here in the northern European plain, it's flat. But when you go a little bit north, the land is starting to rise once again. To rise once what? Once again. So, look here. If you travel even farther north from the northern European plain, the land starts to rise again. Far northern Europe has many rugged hills. Rugged means rough with sharp points. Rough with sharp what? Points, and the low what? Low mountains. Mountains that are lower than the mountains in the south. And what? In the south. Let me complete. You can see these hills and the mountains in the northern part of the British Isles. Look here at the British Isles. These are the British Isles. You can see what? You can see these hills and the mountains in the northern part of the British Isles and in Scandinavia. This is also called Scandinavian Peninsula. Scandinavian what? Peninsula. So we have here what? Mountains, but not higher than the mountains in what? In the south. We call it hills and the mountains. Europe's greatest what? Peninsula. Scandinavia, it's what? It's Europe's greatest Scandinavian peninsula. Scandinavian peninsula. Why peninsula? Because water, water surrounding it from three what? From three sides. From three sides. Okay, let's complete. Scandinavia is only one of Europe's many peninsulas. Smaller peninsulas extend into the sea from many parts of Europe. These peninsulas give Europe a very long, jagged coastline. Jagged coastline, we said jagged means rough with sharp points. Rough with sharp what? With sharp points. So, here, look guys, I'd like to go a little bit back. So, as we can see, jagged means rough with sharp what? With sharp points. So, let's complete. What mean by rugged hills? Rugged hills. Rugged hills, look here, rugged means what guys? Rugged means wild and not even. Not easy to travel over. As I said, it has sharp points. Sharp what? Sharp points guys. Rugged hills. Okay? Rough with sharp points means, as we can say, not easily to travel. Not easy to travel over. Not easily. You can what? You cannot travel easily on them. Like hills. Like cliffs. I think it's clear. These peninsula give Europe a very long, jagged coastline, climate and vegetation. Like its landforms, Europe's climates and vegetation vary widely from region to region. For example, Southern Europe is largely warm and sunny. Southern Europe, that part, guys, Southern Europe, that is what? That is located on the Mediterranean Sea. Is what? Is sunny and warm. As a result, shrubs means twigs, small trees, and the trees that don't need a lot of water are common there. Most of northwestern Europe, look here at the map, guys. Northwestern Europe. Northwestern what? Western Europe. Most of northwestern Europe in contrast has a mild and cooler weather climate. Cold winds from the north and northeast can bring freezing weather in winter. Freezing weather is much more common in Scandinavia. Because of what? Because there is what? You will find a lot of snow. Though that region is very cold throughout the year. Snow falls for much of the year, and a few plants can survive the region's cold climates. Now let's complete. Geography shapes life. What do you mean by geography shapes lives, guys? People like living around rivers. People don't like living in what? Don't like living in mountains or hills, because they are difficult. What? They are difficult to travel on. They are difficult to be planted. Southern Europe. In Southern Europe, most people lived on coastal plains or in river valleys where the land was flat enough to farm. I said before, people grew crops like grapes and olives that could survive the region's dry summers. People grew crops like grapes and olives that could survive the region's dry climates, and I think this is these two crops are being planted in what? In the south. In the mountains where the land was steep. You know, guys, where the land was steep or rocky. People raised what? Where the land was steep or rocky, people raised the sheep and the goats. Because Southern Europe has many peninsulas, people there don't live far from the sea. As a result, many became traders and what? And seafarers. People who lived around the sea became what? Traders or seafarers. They get their living livelihood, guys, from what? From the sea. Northern Europe. Most people in Northern Europe lived farther from the sea. They still had access to the sea. However, through Northern Europe's rivers, because rivers were an easy method of transportation. Towns grew up along them. They made towns around rivers. Rivers also provided protection. The city of Paris, France, for example, was built on an island in a river to make the city hard for raiders to reach. So why Paris has been built on the river? To make the city hard for what? To make the city harder for raiders to reach. I'd like to ask you a question, guys. We said that most rivers are existed in what, guys? Are existed in the northern European plain. Who can tell me, guys? Who can tell me the names of some rivers? List the rivers that you can see. Here we have what? We have Seine River, Rhine River, Elbe River, the Vistula River, Dnieper. Look here. Rivers include what? The Seine, Rhine, Po, Elbe, Danube, Vistula, and Dnieper. So let's go, guys, to the last page today. But before going to the last page, I have a question. How do Europe's landforms and the climates vary by region? You're going to say to me, in Northern Europe, the land is flat with rivers that flow to what? To the sea. And the climate is mild and cool. In Southern Europe, there are more mountain ranges and the climate is warm and what? And sunny. In the north, the land is flat with rivers that flow what? To the sea, and the climate is mild and cool. But in Southern Europe, there are more mountain ranges and the climate is warm and sunny. The last part, guys, today. In the fields around cities, farmers grew all sorts of crops. These fields were excellent farmlands, but the flat land also made an easy route for invaders to follow. The flat land also made an easy route or route, both of them are correct, for invaders to follow. No mountains blocked people's access to Northern Europe, and as a result, the region was frequently invaded. Here, how did geography influence where people lived in Europe, guys? I think it's easy. People lived where, guys? Can you tell me? Southern Europe, cities near the coast and river valleys. They lived what? Around the coasts and river valleys. Northern Europe, cities away from ocean and near rivers. Thank you guys for today's lesson. Hoping to find it enjoyable. If there is any problem, you can contact me on my email or you can call me on my mobile phone. I'm going to share the answer for the assessment on WhatsApp group. Thank you guys.